funny story. I was out and about in East Aurora recently, and someone I know came up to me and said their husband was asking about the history of baseball in East Aurora, and she asked if I could share a little bit of information about that. And I said, so funny, just so happens that I'm going to talk a lot about the history of baseball in my upcoming book, due out on October 7th, Who Put the East in East Aurora. Now I answer the question of who put the East in East Aurora and why we have an East Aurora without a West Aurora, but I also have a whole section about Hamlin Park, and I am here today in front of the baseball diamond here in Hamlin Park that has a very long history. And in the book, I talk about not only the history of baseball on this baseball diamond, which is probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest baseball diamond in our region, but also talk about baseball in general. I went through newspaper records, not only just the East Aurora Advertiser, but newspapers in Buffalo, to try to track down when baseball started in East Aurora, and most particularly when it started here on the baseball diamond. And I can tell you that baseball, the popularity of baseball nationwide after the Civil War was mimicked here in East Aurora. Baseball seemed to be to follow that national trend of popularity. So after the Civil War, baseball games started in the streets here in East Aurora. Boys would play games in the street, Main Street particularly. There wasn't a lot of traffic, so they could play baseball right in the middle of the street. That's documented actually in the very first edition of the East Aurora Advertiser in 1872. Also before that, in other newspapers regionally, baseball was pretty popular. The baseball diamond here, I was determined a few years ago when people were asking about the baseball diamond. It had been in the news. It hadn't been used in a bit, and people were concerned about the future of the baseball diamond. And someone had asked me, just how old is this baseball diamond behind us? And I was able to track down through newspaper records and official documents, government records. Took me quite a while, but that's my job. I'm a researcher, and I actually enjoy doing it. And I found that I could trace back this baseball diamond to at least 1893. And actually, this baseball diamond behind me in Hamlin Park is older than Hamlin Park itself. Hamlin Park came about in 1899. It had been a grove before that, and there was a meadow south of the grove, and informally, baseball games started being played here perhaps earlier, but I can trace it back to 1893. The land was actually owned by a housing developer at the time, and people could use the land at the invitation of this housing developer. But I talk not just about the history of baseball here in Hamlin Park in this book. I also talk about the history of baseball in East Aurora in general, and where people played before this baseball diamond behind me came about. There were games actually in the 1880s. There was a fairgrounds on South Street, and that's where games were played. There was a baseball diamond at the west end of the village that we can't really pinpoint. I can't pinpoint exactly where it was, but there are games documented there. So there's quite a long history of baseball here in East Aurora. One of the most interesting parts of East Aurora baseball history is that at least two major league players played here. The Shang brothers. Wally Shang actually went on to play in the World Series, and he started his baseball career with the Roycrofters and the Mercury baseball team right here behind me on the Hamlin Park baseball diamond. So if young people playing baseball need inspiration, they need to look no further than this baseball diamond behind me, where World Series players actually started their careers. A World Series player, major league players started their careers. Bobby and Wally Shang. You can look them up, or you can just take a look at this book that's coming out. I talk a little bit about them in the context of baseball history here in our community. It's a very fascinating history. And of course, games are still played here on this baseball diamond here in Hamlin Park. And I go into detail about the progression of baseball and this baseball diamond, and just how old it is, and how we've almost lost this baseball diamond and this park. I have a whole section in this book about Hamlin Park and how fortunate we are to have it, but through the hard work of people who throughout the past almost 200 years, actually. It's not just, even though the park was officially dedicated in 1899, people before that took efforts to save this baseball diamond and the grove here in Hamlin Park for us to enjoy today. And I go into detail of why it's called Hamlin Park, Mr. Hamlin donating it to the village. So if you want to know more, October 7th, it's online now. Please support local bookstores. It'll be available at local bookstores, also online. Who Put the East in East Aurora. out October 7th. If you want to know details, I'm going to be updating the list of where the book is available on my website, www.robertlowellgoller.com, so check it out there. Again, thank you for joining me each week for a discussion about local history, including this week about baseball. I am the town and village historian, but these videos and my research, including my book, are not officially connected to my duties as town and village historian. Again, I'm Robert Lowell Goller. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Take care.